Hi, everyone. We are here today with Laura Munson. We are so lucky to have her. She's coming to us all the way from Montana. And welcome, Laura. So I just want you guys to get to know her a little. Laura Munson is the author, is the New York Times bestselling author of the international bestselling memoir, This Is Not the Story You Think It Is, A Season of Unlikely Happiness, which was the book of the month and named one of the best books of the year. It has been published in 9 countries and has been featured in Vanity Fair, Elle, Redbook, Time, Newsweek, Washington Post, Publishers Weekly, and many other newspapers, magazines, and online venues across the globe. Laura is the founder of Haven Writing Retreats, which Open Road Media ranked in top 5 writing retreats in the United States. She speaks and teaches on the subject of voice and empowerment through creativity at conventions, corporations, universities, and schools, retreats, and wellness centers. Her work has been published in the New York Times, the New York Times Magazine, O Magazine, The Week, Huffington Post, Redbook, Women's Day, Good Housekeeping, Ladies Home Journal, More Magazine, Time Magazine, Newsweek, The Sun, The Shambhala Sun, Big Sky Journal, and others. She has appeared in Good Morning America, The Early Show, WGN, many NPR stations, Hay House Radio, as well as other media, including London's This Morning and Australia's Sunrise. She lives in Montana with her family. Welcome, Laura. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with the Great Life Design Mastermind ladies today.
I'm so glad to be here, Cherise, especially since you've come out to Montana to the Haven Retreat. So it's really nice to connect with you here doing your work.
And I would actually just like to talk to that a little bit. So I think it was 3 or 4 years ago that I read your book, and as I was reading it, I got it. I'm reading your book and I'm like, this is not the story you think it is. And literally the title could not be better, because I'm like, this isn't about her marriage. This is about her. And I felt like I was just in commune with you and we were in conversation the whole time I was reading the book. And the weird thing is I was in Mexico, so I was super mellow, I was super relaxed, and I'm reading your book on the beach. And I'm crying and I'm reading it and I'm going, why do I think I know this woman? And I go to Facebook and I'm like, somehow we're connected. And I sent you a message and I'm like, I'm reading your book, I'm sobbing. Thank you so much. I love you. And you happened to must have been sitting at your computer and you were like, thank you, honey. And that started a conversation. And that conversation wound up with me, I don't know how long, I think it was maybe 3 months later, not even, 2 months later. I thought I'd come in June and literally jumped in and decided to go in February. I knew I was going to be in Montana in the snow, and it felt super cathartic. And I knew it was going to be that, and it was that and more. So Haven Writer Retreat was a transmission. It was a transformational experience for me. So arriving there, just the writing prompts, the one-on-one time that I got with you, and what I would call, I talk about how we excavate our souls. And I truly had that excavating soul moment with you when we were in our one-on-one. And I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about this part. And she goes, you were like, that is the part. That is it. That place you don't want to go. You need to go there. And you just really pushed me to lean into those places. I'm like, I'm really gonna write about that in this book. And you took me there and you held me. You were a witness, and yeah, it was a powerful experience for me too. And also, of course, I'm a farm girl and I was in the mountains in Montana with horses and wearing my big sorrel boots. And it was perfection. And I think if anyone's working on a book or has an even idea for a book, even if they haven't even started, the Haven Writing Retreat definitely was a monumental experience for me. And I will be going back. So.
Good. I'd love to have you back. You're welcome. Thank you for receiving it. It's so nice when you put work out there and put a lot of energy behind it, and then have people who actually meet you there. And you met me there. So thank you.
Thanks. So I really wanted to bring you on the show today because I wanted to dive into creativity. I also wanted to talk about feminine leadership. I wanted to get your take on lots of things. You know, you're a mentor and a leader to a lot of women. And so I wanted to dive into some things that, you know, maybe subjects that people are like, what are they craving around their creativity and inspiration, and just start to play in that a little bit. And so one of the first things I want to ask you, and I know we've talked about it before, is what is your process around creativity?
Okay, well, so, yeah, a little bit of background about me. I've been writing since I was a little girl. So in my office, I literally have every journal that I've ever written in since 4th grade. And it was like pink patent leather that said private with the lock, you know?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Mostly about boys. But as the years went by, I realized that writing was actually my way to process life. And I say this a lot, but it's worth saying here, especially with this group. Writing is my practice, my prayer, my meditation, my way of life, and sometimes my way to life. And so in about, 2009, I went through a marital crisis in which I was faced with utter rejection from my then husband, who said, "I don't love you anymore." Nobody wants to hear those words. Nobody. And I had really only written fiction and some personal essay, but I had written book after book, mostly of made up stuff. Like, I think actually fiction is distilled reality, and I like playing with reality, so that's why I'm so drawn to fiction. But at that time, I knew that if writing was my way to life, then I needed to use writing as a tool to help me process that time in my life. And so I had to be the main character. And so I wrote my way through this. It was a 6-month crisis wherein I got to practice the same thing that I'd been dealing with from publishers for years, which was, again, rejection. Only this time it was, straight to the core. Nobody wants to hear that, right? Like, I don't love you anymore. So I tried to really climb into this concept of what it is to live in the present moment in a place of non-suffering, which is a very lofty concept. And I thought, if there's any time to do it, it's now. I'd already been practicing with rejection slips from publishers for years, as every writer knows is par for the course. And those rejection slips are like, "This does not meet our needs at this time." And you can have, "This does not meet our needs at this time" mean, "I'm a horrible writer, I've got no talent, I'm not worthy of being on the planet Earth" in about 3 seconds flat. Or you can simply have it mean that it doesn't meet their needs at this time. So whose needs does it meet? So I applied that same sort of philosophy into the marital crisis. And it was simply a mundane, moment by moment retraining of my mind around rejection. And I was good at it sometimes, and sometimes I was really bad at it. But the idea was to become aware of the inner critic and how mean she is to us, and how most of us wouldn't speak to our worst enemies the way that we speak to ourselves in our own minds. And so during that time, my commitment was not to be an emotional victim during a time when most would say I was an emotional victim. And moment by moment to truly look at how to powerfully choose my emotions. Do I want to freak out right now? If so, then I want to powerfully choose to freak out and not feel like I'm under the thumb of the freak out. And so there began this incredible experience. And I honestly have never felt more free. Now, at the end of the book, the marriage comes up for air. But the philosophy was never a recipe for how to stay married. And some countries, because you mentioned it was published in 9 countries, and I got to hear from a lot of people, they misunderstood the message. You got the message on that beach in Mexico. And that book is that it's not about marriage at all. That's just the entry point. It's about a woman trying to figure out what it is to live in the present moment. And so what ended up happening, Charisse, is that this woman has been sitting here in Montana writing books for a long time. I'm originally from Chicago, but I've been here for 25 years and raising kids, riding horses, and living out here in the beautiful big sky. Suddenly, I was catapulted into the world of women's wellness. And so suddenly I'm on the stage with 2,000 people in the audience talking about all these big, lofty words like empowerment and mindfulness and all that stuff, which I love, and I'm glad it's a movement. I'm glad that mindfulness was on the cover of Time magazine. But I'm up there talking about its practical application, like what that really looks like driving your kids to school or on the sidelines of the soccer game or at the grocery store, etc. So all this to say, you asked me about my process, or as you say in Canada, process. We say process. And so suddenly, all these people were coming up to me saying, not like, how do I hold on to my marriage? And that it was the people who got it that wanted more the philosophy, but they were saying, you wrote your way through a hard time in your life. I want to write my way through something that's going on in my life or something that has happened in the past. whether or not it's fact or fiction, or simply to get back to that journal writing that I used to do before life took over and career and family or whatever has taken over. And I could see the hunger in their eyes, and then immediately would come the qualifier. But I'm not creative. Who am I to write? It's, you know, it's self-indulgent at best. There's so many more important things that I need to do with my life. And then the one that really killed me was I don't have a voice to begin with anyway. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I started leading Haven writing retreats. And so now my process is still that I write every day as much as I can. And I don't recommend that for everybody. It's just simply the way I process this beautiful and heartbreaking thing called life. And then after that, now I get to be in community. And that has become a huge part of my own process as well. Even though I'm leading it, I still get to be in the circle. And so that's not, if there's anyone out there in this group that is thinking about writing, listen, you don't have to do it alone. I did it for years by myself, and you don't have to. You can find support. So I think that's a good place for me to stop. But that's how I got into this whole thing, was simply using writing to process my own life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love that. And I remember you talking about that at the retreat as well. And it just opened so many doors, just hearing those words of like, can we dive in deeper on the place of voice?
Yes, let's please. That's my
You go there with me? Yeah. Can we talk more about voice, finding voice? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, how many of us were raised with seen but not heard, or spoke when spoken to, or don't show off, or because I say so, or even a spanking because you asked the question why, or because you said the word no. So a lot of people have just been squashed from the time that they were really little. When it comes to having the permission, that's really where it begins, having the permission to say what you want to say, and to believe that there's nobody else that can say it like you. It's just not possible. And that's what we find out. I mean, didn't you find that out on the retreat, that I give the same writing prompt and you've got 10 other people's brains launching from the same launch pad, and they all go into such different places? Completely. That's really, like, I'm a missionary for this, that you do have a voice and it matters.
Mm-hmm. Another concept that I talk about in my work, and that you talked about a lot at Haven, was mining your life. Mm-hmm. And I'd love for us to play in that a bit, because I talk with people all the time who they want to do this, or they want to do that. Or like, I've coached a lot of people who've become coaches. And one of the biggest concepts that I talk about with them is you can't be like me. You're going to be nothing like me in this process. I need you to mine your life, what has happened there. And you need to coach from that place. So can you talk to us about writing from that place of mining your life, even if it's fiction, whatever it is?
Well, this is just a teeny bit of a tangent, but I think it will help anybody out there, because it helps me all the time. So suddenly when I was out there promoting my book, and like you said, I mean, just listening to that list that you read in my bio is so exhausting to listen to, because I think about all the travel and all the interviews, and it was wonderful, and it was what I always wanted. But when I finally got that I'd wanted, I realized that success is really a myth. And that means that failure's myth too, which means to me that that's good news, because it means that we can control one thing, and that's our writing process. That's doing the work, whatever it is that is your work. So writing was really, like I was saying, how I mine my life. But now, how do I go out there in the world and talk to George Stephanopoulos on Good Morning America? You know, how do I get on that whole circuit and speak my truth and keep it real? And so it's really important, I think, to know really what your message is, truly know what it is, not what you think are the shiny talking points, but really what's at the core. And so I gave myself a mantra going out there, and it's what you're talking about. I think I give myself permission to be exactly who I am and have it be easy. Like, fancy that, easy. I give myself permission to be exactly who I am and have it be easy. And then when I went out the second time, when the paperback came out a year later, I added to that, and have it be fun too, because it gets to be fun. So that's what I had done. You know, that's why I think so many people read that book, because it was a woman minding her life. And then I think that was a huge defining moment in my life, when I started to star as the main character in a book. And then the second defining moment was when the marriage was over and I needed to figure out how to make a living, because just because you're a best-selling author doesn't mean that you make a lot of money doing it. And, you know, writing is a gamble. It always is. You've got to do it for yourself first. So I'm sitting there in my office with like mice crawling in the walls, because it's Montana, thinking, who am I? How do I show up on this planet already? And where's the ease? Where's the natural flow? What's not so complicated in my life? What am I already doing that I could somehow mine to turn into some kind of career that would also complement my writing? And I thought, well, you know what? The one thing that I do know how to do is sit down every day and write, no matter what's been going on in my life. I know how to find grace and ease there, instead of feeling like I'm, you know, like wrestling myself there and putting a seatbelt on and forcing myself to stay. I love to be in that place. It's like, to me, it's like I'm a little girl getting away with something, like faking sick from school, like butterflies in the stomach. So on that day, I thought, is it possible for me to be able to create circles of people? Men are invited, but they rarely come. It's interesting. But mostly women come to do this kind of introspective work. And I thought, you know, also Montana, this is such a beautiful container for anybody's muse, because it's so spacious. And so I put on Facebook, hey, anybody want to come on a writing retreat with me in Montana? Not even knowing what a writing retreat really was, or what the design was, or what the price point would be, or even where I would hold it. And in 2 hours, 24 people signed up. And that was 5 years ago. So since then, we've worked with over 400 people from all over the world. And I think that's like, what a great example of what can happen, what is possible when we truly look inside and ask, what do I know how to do? How do I already show up on this planet, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel? And so I like to say to people that I'm glad that my passions were in a row at that time in my life, even if my ducks weren't, because they were not. Mm-hmm. Out of it grew this whole new work that I do, which I love. And it's such a nice balance to the writing life. Like right now, I'm working on 3 books, a novel, another memoir, and a book about writing, which we'll hopefully get into a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you know, I don't have to write in a vacuum anymore. And that feels really good to me. So what do you think about that? The mining of the life. That's a good story.
It's a great story. Can I ask you about your muse?
Sure.
Go there with me.
Well, my gosh. So, you know, the word muse to some people who aren't, you know, who don't identify themselves as writers seems like a really lofty word. Mm-hmm. And really, I think all it means is truly being willing to give yourself permission to be in your, these are all big words like purpose or true nature. I feel like, you know, when you're dancing with your muse, when it's, I'm going to say this again, I can't say it enough, when it actually is easy. Mm-hmm. Even and especially if you're talking or writing about really dark material, or like your most inconvenient truth or your dirtiest secret, and it's bringing up old emotions or really fraught emotions, you can still tell when the flow is happening. And when you're in that flow, to me, that's when I'm really dancing with my muse. And when I'm trying to push it, and I just keep meeting with this, then I know I need to look at it a different way. And I'm not saying that, and like this is what you were talking about during our one-on-one, I'm not saying that you should go where it feels easy and happy and like you're all blissed out all the time. Yeah. I'm talking about that kind of ease when you're with. It's like, yes, and. Now, just to confuse things, I often tell people that when you feel resistance, that's usually the place where you need to go. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, it's like I'm contradicting myself. I'm saying go where there's ease, and also go where there's resistance, and check it out. So I look at it when I feel a block, I just kind of see is like, is there give there? And if I just keep getting hit with this, maybe not. But if there's some give, then I will go down there and dig deeper and deeper. And usually the gold that you're mining when you write is about 3 layers down. It's that first layer that's always the hardest part to break through. And it's in the first layer that usually it's not the pure flow of it. That's where people are pretty bungled up usually, in that first layer. And this has to do with the work you do. It's usually because of the story that we tell ourselves that isn't actually truth. It's more mythic, usually, like that success myth I talked about.
Mm. Oh, I'm letting that sink in. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll help you let it sink in, because it's all about the scene. So I'm finally, okay, so the story I told myself for years was, I only matter. Like my value on this planet is only contingent upon whether or not I am a best-selling author. Like, I wanted to be published to wide acclaim, to every sinking sun, I would say, on every beach, please let me get published to wide acclaim. And then I kept getting rejections. And then things got really real. And wouldn't you know it, it's when I let go of all that I did get all that success. And so I'm in this limo, this big, huge, like shiny black Suburban, which is a joke because I drive a Suburban in Montana because I haul horses and it's all rusty and falling apart. But this was a brand new, shiny Suburban, Manhattan, Upper East Side, and we're on our way to the first reading. And I've got this total dream team, publicity team from Penguin that did like all the publicity for Eat, Pray, Love, and the book The Help, which, by the way, Catherine Stockett, who wrote The Help, is a Haven alum. She came to Haven to work on another book. And so I've got this dream team, and I look out the window and I thought, there's nothing here. Like, there's no there. I mean, other than the fact that I got, as my son said, I don't know what the big deal is. You just got like pieces of cardboard on either side of all those pages. But, of course, I was so grateful for readers and so grateful to be able to spread this message in so many different arenas. But that feeling, that like craving I'd had for years, that story I told myself that I was only as good as this sort of success, I realized in that moment was totally a myth. And so I said to this great group of, editor and publicity people and my agent and everybody, I have to tell you that I wanted this for so long. And now that I'm here, I don't feel what I thought I would feel. And I'm very grateful. And all of their shoulders just kind of like dropped like 3 inches, like, oh, thank God she's not a diva. Like, she gets it. She's the real deal. And that's what I try to help people do at Haven. Whether or not they ever want to write a book, writing can do that for you. It helps you to be in your truth. And that's another time when you're really dancing with your muse, when you are able to access your truth. And we know what that feels like.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Wow. There's so much gold in everything you just said. I'm like, okay, I'm so into listening to you that I'm like, where am I going now? One thing that I'd like to talk about a little bit is, okay, we're going to dive into this a little bit. How do you move to flow? When do you, like, we've talked a little bit about the muse, and maybe this is right around the same lines as ease. Does flow come, or do you cultivate it?
Does flow come, or do I cultivate it? Well, so for me, because I am a professional writer, I want to stand in the intersection of heart and mind and craft.
Okay.
So, if I'm writing in my journal, then I want to be, I think, in the intersection of like heart and mind. Probably that's good enough. Soul, if you want to throw that one in there too, that little thing called soul. As a professional writer, I'm actually, my job is to create a bridge from whatever I know to be true, even if I fictionalize it, to the reader. I'm not writing for the reader. It's ultimately between the work and the reader, not the writer and the reader. But that's what I'm trying to do, is build a bridge. So I think that from a professional standpoint, when I'm in that flow, it usually has to do with scene, right? Because we live in scenes. Right now, you're in your office. I'm in my dining room, actually, in Montana, looking out at the snow. We're both in a scene. Everybody who's listening today is in a scene. Maybe there's a dog lying at their feet. Maybe they are smelling coffee. Maybe the mailman's delivering the mail. Or, it's we're all in a scene. So often what happens, and we can kind of get into this if people want to do some writing exercises at the end, but often what happens is that we get really charged, really triggered by the theme the theme, THEME, which is lofty. But that's usually the thing that holds the charge, that gets us to want to sit down and write, again, whether it's in your journal or an op-ed piece for your local newspaper, or for a personal essay, or maybe you write a blog post or a poem or a song, or even a long form project like memoir or fiction. So what happens is that when we sit down, we think that the theme is going to carry us. We think that that's where the flow is. The truth is that once we start thematically, we usually get blocked because the theme holds too much of a charge. It brings up old memories. It can, like I said earlier, be very fraught. And then the big one of all is that we think we have something to say, like a point to make, and we start to feel ourselves get up on a soapbox maybe. Or we get triggered to, like, this is my old story and I need to create a new one. So here's the trick. You ready? You ready? Write this down. And this is all about, like, the book I'm writing is teaching people to write from the inside out, no matter how they want to use writing in their life. Like, so when I work with the corporate people, we do this within the context of their brand or their brand's message, or the kind of how and why behind the thing, the what. So it is always about the scene, SCENE. Trust that the scene is the infrastructure that will hold up the theme. So it's just like, I mean, if you're sitting in church, like, the minister will start with a story. Or if you're at a cocktail party and you're really, like, somebody's holding a whole corner of the room, it's because they're telling stories. And it's because they're bringing the people around them into scene. Or if you're giving a big talk at your corporation, you begin with a story and everybody's in. And the greatest thing about this is that, for the most part, with this kind of writing we're talking about, the scene has already happened. So all you have to do is capture the scene. So without confusing people, I'm trying to say, trust in the story to be the exact place where you find that flow, or even better yet, that confluence of heart and mind and craft. Or even if you study how a comedian tells a joke, they will often tell a story first, and then they'll refer back to the story so you feel like you're in the club. So we can play around with some of this later, but that's, like, if there's somebody out there who really cares about something. I mean, right now our world is a very interesting place in which to live, and surely we all have things that we're really confused by, or that we're really triggered by. Well, rather than going, if you want to write about it, whether to process your life or this issue, or if you actually want to write something that might land in somebody's lap or heart or mind, you might consider coming up with a scene and bringing us into it with characters, and let them speak, and let them think, and let them interact, and let them touch stuff. Like, if they're nervous, like, show them with their pen, like clicking their pen back and forth. Like, you can learn so much about people by the way they touch stuff, like the way they make a bed, or in my case, don't make a bed. So, and then bring in all the senses. If it's in your grandmother's kitchen in a farmhouse in Illinois, then let's find out what's boiling on the stove, and what does it smell like, and is she rolling out dough, and is there flour on her cheeks as she does it, and is she mad at her husband, and is she whacking her hands on her apron in a certain way? Like, the more detail, the more character driven, the more scene driven, the more you will find the flow of what it is that you have to say. And I cannot underline that enough. It's just, the story is so powerful. Would you agree? I mean, let's hear from you.
I think you hit the nail on the head so much, because if I think about the women I work with, or even I help people start to create, because I'm helping them map out their businesses or helping them map out their books, there is this stumbling block around theme. Like, I have a message and I need to deliver this message. And what you just said is literally the key. Like, I literally saw this hole of, okay, well, what's missing here? And it's that key. We need to get into scene. We need to get into story. Like, it's great to have this overlying message, but I need to come into it with you. Like, how am I going to step into this message with you? And receive it.
You can rewrite your story too. I mean, that would be a really great thing for you to do with your clients. It's like, let's write your story of what happened. Maybe write another story of what was supposed to happen, then what actually happened, and then write a third scene that is something that's forward thinking, that creates a new story. A lot of people do that at Haven, because a lot of the people who come there have gone through stuff that has them inspired to write. And in no way, as you know, is it group therapy, but the writing becomes highly therapeutic. And I see people, you know, I know a lot about people before they come because we spend a lot of time on the phone, but it's up to them if they want to expose their story. Over and over again, I watch people playing with story and rewriting story and finding freedom in that. So that might be something really cool to do with your clients and with the people out there. Rewrite your story and see what that does for you.
Powerful. Yeah, like what would it look like ideally, or what are you wanting it to look like, and just playing with that.
Yeah. Yep.
Can I ask you some personal questions, kind of?
Oh, sure.
Dive into a few things, like not super personal. I'd like to know what your 3 non-negotiables are in life.
3 non-negotiables. Wow. Let's see. You know, I've actually never really thought about that. So here's what comes from my gut. You ready?
Yes.
3 non-negotiables. Always connect with place. That's really important to me. Even when I was little, growing up in the suburbs just outside of Chicago, I was always really motivated by and connected to place, both the flora and also the fauna of place. And so it makes sense that I've been out here for 25 years. And I've worked hard to curate and procure my life here on this land where I live. It's really actually the container for my muse in a smaller way than like the whole big sky, this land. So connection with place, you know, this is a big word that I'm glad is in the zeitgeist right now, and that's community. We all are just craving, starving for community and connection. And that's something that as a writer that is hard for me, because when, you know, the writing life is a solitary life, even though we can have writing groups or go on writing retreats, the majority of the writer's life is spent alone. And so it's important to, especially if you have a solitary life, to get out and be a part of your community. And now here's a question. Is the internet community? Is Facebook community? Is Twitter community? I think it absolutely can be. And I've, like, for instance, met you that way, right? Mm-hmm. It's important to get in front of people's actual eyes and to look each other in their actual eyes and to connect with people. And, you know, again, the power of touch. Mm-hmm. So I'd say place, community, and then I have to say creativity. And I want to add this. So when I was out there on the whole speaking circuit and people were coming up to me, like I was saying before, the other thing they said outside of I don't have a voice was I'm not creative. And I think it's so sad that in our educational system as children, at least here, and I had a wonderful education and great teachers along the way. However, it really was this distinction of you're creative and you're athletic, or you're into math and science, you're into English and history, or you're into art and nothing else. And so, and I think that's really unfortunate because, look, everybody is creative. Mm-hmm. The words that you choose that come out of your mouth, that's an act of creativity. You know, the beautiful necklace that you got on this morning, the fact that you chose that versus another one. Yes, gorgeous. Look at that. That's an act of creativity. You know, wear your hair up or down, creativity. Earrings or no earrings. Decorate your living room. Every single thing that you do is an act of creativity. So we got to stop telling ourselves that we don't have a voice and that we're not creative. Of course you have a voice, and of course you are creative. That's part of the human condition. So I guess I want to write that down. Now I'm going to write an essay about my 3 non-negotiables. Place, community, and creativity.
Essay I would love to read. Yes. Oh my gosh. And I love how you hit on, like, even because in my world of soul shamaning, we talk a lot about the soul and about the ego. And so when you talk about, because we go to this place and we're like, is it my ego or my soul that wants this? Like, what is my truth? And when you talk about it as an act of creativity, that says to me that's soul.
Okay.
That isn't ego. Because if it's an act of creativity, it's coming from the depth of your being.
Yeah, you know, this is kind of lofty, but I think your crowd can handle it. And this is in the book I'm writing about writing. So I'm quoting myself. I'm not this elegant off the cuff, but so ultimately, I think it's not about the words. It's about what's behind them, what's in between them, and then what's left in their wake. And if we can tap into that, then we can build those bridges anywhere we want. Because to me, that's really what it's about. It's about that awareness. And it's really about, I mean, that then we're getting into intuition, and it becomes a feel thing. Mm-hmm. Like yesterday, I worked on my novel. I'd like to finish it sooner than later. And I'd like to see it published. I think this would be the next kind of best book to come out, because again, like I said earlier, novels are what I really love the most. And so this is an ensemble book with 4 women in it. And I'm at the point, I'm rewriting this book for the 3rd time, which is kind of what it takes when you're writing books. And you got to love it. You got to be hungry for that. Otherwise, you know, it's a long haul to write a book. And I honestly, Charisse, I don't know where these women are going to take this book. I've completely surrendered it to them. I tried to finish it a certain way twice. And now I think that I need to truly get into that place with all 4 of these women and let them find their confluence and their flow and bring us to the end. And that takes a little bit of courage, because you're like out on scaffoldings, just like trying to hold this thing together and hope that, or like, you know, it's like Jenga, you stack up all the blocks and then you start pulling them out to see how it stands. That's kind of how it feels right now to write this book.
It's getting comfortable in the uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
Yes. And just allowing it to be there and come. I love how you talk about allowing these women to write this book. In other words, that to me is what is this place where I sit in between 2 worlds and seeing what comes through and getting out of the way just so the message comes. And that's where I find flow. For me, that's my place of flow, is just I move aside and just see what happens and what comes. And what this voice that I call she, what does she have to say? Yeah.
Well, that takes courage, you know, and also, all right, let's be honest too. I think that we don't do really anything unless there's some sort of a payoff, and hopefully it's not a masochistic one. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I would think that what you teach is how to help people find that place and then be hungry for it. And then for them to create a practice in their life, or just a thought process that helps them to really feel good in that place. You know, and I don't know if it's good, but to feel fulfilled, or at least like it's true and pure. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm trying to teach people, you know, how to use writing in your life as a transformative tool, or even a therapeutic tool, in a way that works for each person, you know, based on who you really are, not who, you know, you wish you were, but like based on your real habits and your real personality and your real responsibilities, instead of, you know, I mean, I love Liz Gilbert, and I love that she's helping people find their creativity, and she's telling people to write every day. And I think that's great if they can. What if they can't? You know, so it's like, I'm trying to help people find out what works for them. Maybe it's, you know, Sunday afternoons, mm-hmm. or maybe it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 20 minutes in the morning. But it's kind of like, you know, if it's like working out, it's like start small and be honest with who you really are, and get intentional behind it. So here's something I think your group will like. So the way this all went down was that I wrote my way through this marital crisis, right? And then I sent it to my agent. So for those of you who don't understand the way the publishing world works, if you want to get traditionally published in the United States with like a big New York publishing house, let's say, you need to have an agent. And the agent is the liaison between the writer and the publisher, the publishing house. So you really want to find, it's like your agent that sticks with you through it all pretty much. And so, and the agent doesn't get paid until she or he gets a book deal. So this is a really special relationship, and you want to cultivate it as such. So I contacted my agent and said, you know, I've departed from fiction, and I know you're shopping around some novels right now. I'd like to have you shop this. I think that a lot of people need this message, and I think it will resonate with a lot of people, whether or not they're married, that they can actually they can find emotional freedom, big word, during a time of great crisis. And she said, well, Laura, I'd love to send this out. But right now, I don't feel like you have enough of a platform for this kind of message, because this gets more into kind of memoir, how to, it's really not how to, but memoir. She said, let's take a beat and have you build your platform. So this is a really bad day in a writer's life when you get good at what you do, you've finished books, and you've got a great agent, and she's saying, let's take a beat. You need to work on building your brand, which, you know, I took myself out of the world of brand and shiny things and brass rings to live out here and to really cultivate my craft. So it was that moment that I got off the phone, burst into tears, right? And put my head down on my desk. And then when I came up, I thought, I need to figure out why I'm doing this thing. I've spent my entire adult life. I'm 50 now. This was, I think I was probably in my early 40s when this happened. So, you know, I had spent since 1988, when I got out of college, writing and writing and writing. And so I wrote a one-line statement of intention. And I would recommend this to everybody out there, no matter what it is that you love, no matter what it is that you really care about, a one-line statement of intention. And so what came out of me in that moment, asking myself, why do I do this thing? You know, why do I even do this thing? This is like showing up, making stuff out of thin air, staring at a computer screen all day by myself. It's not great for your abs, your glutes, or anything else. And so here's what came out. I write to shine a light on a dim or otherwise pitch black corner to provide relief for myself and others. And I thought, like, relief? Really? From what? And then I thought, well, this beautiful and heartbreaking thing called life. And it was in that moment that I had 1 hour before I needed to pick my kids up from school. And so I wrote the short version of that book that had already been written. And I sent it to the Modern Love column in the New York Times, which a lot of people read. It's in the Sunday Style section. And I've been rejected from Modern Love many times. It's very difficult to get published in Modern Love. And maybe some of your listeners read Modern Love. If you don't, it's a great essay every Sunday in the New York Times. Again, Sunday Style section. So I sent the editor the essay, which was just the short version of the book that was already written and the time of my life that I'd already lived. And I didn't even pitch it. I just kind of wrote, like, here, see what you think about this. And then I went on my merry way, and I came back, and there was a note, an email in my inbox that said, this one we're going to take. And that day that it was published, that morning, I did have a blog, but like nobody read it. My mother, my godmother, my sister. And that morning there were 3 clicks on my blog. And by the end of that day, when it was published in the Times, there were over 3,000 clicks on my blog. Apparently, the comments from it shut down the New York Times website temporarily. I don't know, that's what I was told. They certainly had to shut down the comments. It went totally viral. Something that I wrote in 1 hour in total surrender after having written that one-line statement of intention. And to date, that essay, it's called Those Aren't Fighting Words, Dear. That was in 2009 when it was published. I still hear almost weekly from people from all over the world who read that essay because they got the message, which I keep saying, which is you do not have to suffer just because of the things that people say and do to you emotionally. And so, like, it was reproduced all over the world. I think I got paid like $300, but it was reproduced in the Week, which are the top most read articles that week in Time, Newsweek, the Washington Post, I think, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, maybe the LA Times. And to date, they tell me that it is the most read article in the history of the week with over 5 million readers. Wow.
Wow.
I know. And then my agent went out that Monday with the book that she wasn't going to even send out because now suddenly I had a platform. And I got to choose between the editor of The Kite Runner and the editor of a book that they thought was going to do well called The Help. So how full circle is that then that Catherine ends up coming to Haven? So I just have to think that there's some lessons in there for all of us. One is surrender. One is getting intentional. And what's the third one? Belief in what you're doing. And to go all the way back to what started this, that if I didn't have some sort of payoff, if I didn't love the process of writing, I never would have hung in it for all those years. Never. And now the work I do, it reaches a lot of people, and it feels very complete for me. And that's because I know what my intention is. And that's why, do you remember at Haven, we all write a one-line statement of intention, whether or not you ever care to get published or even identify as a writer. And I tell people, put it someplace, like mine is still in my office on just a little Post-it. I write to shine a light on a dim or otherwise pitch black corner to provide relief for myself and others. And when I get lost, I return to it.
I love it.
Yeah. And I think for all of your clients, for whatever it is, for their job or their relationships, like write a one-line statement of intention. And it might be true now and then change next week or in a month or a year.
Yeah, when I do my opening program, which is my manifesto and mapping program, you write your personal manifesto.
Nice.
And it can change or it stays the same, but yeah, you're writing one every year, updating it. How does it feel for you? Or it just sticks.
How do you define manifesto? Because that's something I'm really interested in too.
Mission statement, intention statement, all the same thing. Yeah, your personal manifesto. Yeah, so I would call what you wrote, your writer's statement, is a personal manifesto on why you write. Same thing.
Do you remember, I don't know if you remember this, but in our closing circle at Haven on the last night, we read a manifesto written by one of my favorite authors, Terry Tempest Williams. And it's Why She Writes, and it's 2 pages long, and it's just incredible. And we go around and everybody reads a line. No matter what you whatever role writing plays in your life, this is just a beautiful manifesto that models passion and truth. Mm-hmm. So Terry Tempest Williams, Google her manifesto on writing. And I mean, one of the lines in there that I love is, I write past the fear of exposure is one. And I write I write in a solitude born of community. I love that.
Oh, I get chills with that.
Yeah, me too.
All of my work is around bringing women together, and I call it in coven, because that's I love the word because it's rebellious and it says to the patriarchy. It does all of that. So yes, I love that. I remember doing that, and it was a very powerful. I think I saw typical. Oh my gosh, where do we go from there? I'm just sitting in everything you've said. Okay. Can we talk about sisterhood a little, since we brought up community? So one of the questions that I have here that I've been working on is, how do you think we can overcome the divide that exists with women and come into sisterhood?
Say it again. How do
you think we can overcome the divide that exists with women and come into sisterhood? So I think we sort of are preaching to the choir in the fact that, most of the women coming into here understand what it means to be in commune with women and to be in coven. But also, if we look at what's happening on a global scale right now, if we look at the US and what has occurred even in your election, they said women won this election. So if we were to even think of how do we listen to our sisters who have different views and different values than us? Because I truly believe that there are those of us that exist right now that are meant to be bridges. And what she says to me is that we need to listen like we've never listened. And we need to be willing to speak to those that don't look like us, that don't share the same opinion. And we really need to come together, and because it's going to take women to shift this, and we need to listen to other women. So how are we going to do this? Big question. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I have to break it down, because when I was suddenly thrown in front of these huge audiences, and thank God I was a theater major, and I'm an extrovert, by the way, because I would have been SOL, deer in the headlights if I wasn't. I just kept thinking we need circles. And I think that's why I kind of gave myself the hook off the stage and started Haven. That's another reason, because I want to be in circles, and I want to be in small circles. And, I have all these visions of being able to create a huge network of Haven retreats, and then have 500 people at a time, and then all these little breakout circles. That's not going to happen right now in my life. that said, the power of the small circle is one to really pay attention to. And it's hard for me because my whole life, basically almost once a month, is spent at least for a week in those small circles. So I do see community, and I do see connection, and I do see that word, that word coven that you're using, happen. And now with my advanced programs, I see it happen in my living room. Because if you come on the first program and then you decide you do want to write a book, then I have a whole different advanced program that is like a hardcore think tank for your book, using this worksheet that I put together that people use prior to the workshop, and then it guides us through our 5 days together. So I don't really experience this separation. I experience all these little groups of connection, connectivity that feels so real to me that it gives me hope. Now, the broader question, I don't know the answer to that, except for if we can keep telling each other our stories. And that's my MO. That's how I know how to navigate this thing called life, is story, person by person. We've had an interesting time in our local town recently. We've had some real hate going on with some people who came into town who are outsiders. And I got to watch our little mountain community come together, create a new mission statement that is all about love lives here and acceptance. And to start that dialogue with people is critical. And it often doesn't happen when everything is rosy. It often happens when the bottom falls out. And so if we don't use a time like this to connect and be in those circles and to have those conversations and tell our stories, then we're really going to miss out. And I believe that actually it's bringing people together all over the world.
I love what you said about it's taking something. Like, it doesn't happen when everything's all happy and roses. It takes these tragedies. And I think that's what's being highlighted right now, where you're seeing oppression at a different level. And we're witnessing, the side of humanness that really we don't want to see. And in that, this is what's bringing us into circle. We're actually, it's the catalyst to the conversation. So here we are now, we're coming into circles. We're creating these opportunities to talk. And it's such a simple, I think about the analogy of, I'm in Victoria, British Columbia. We rarely get snow. And so when we do, it shuts everything down. And I started thinking, how well do we know our neighbors? Like, if we can't get out and things happen, how well do we know our neighbors? And it was an interesting time where we actually do know quite a few of them, but we all came out and we were all shoveling the walkways together. And our one neighbor, who's an older gentleman, and his heart isn't great, all three of us just went and shoveled his whole driveway and a sidewalk for him, just coming together. And it took the snowstorm for us to show up and go, hey, we'll do this for you.
Yeah.
And so if we take that same energy and we start translating it into, okay, it isn't a time of tragedy or need, but I'm going to show up anyway.
Yeah.
And how can we constantly be doing that? And I think that's what will start to create the circles and start to create the conversations, because I may have different political views or religious views, but we can all come together because the snow needs to be shoveled.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful metaphor. Write that story.
Write that story.
A story with characters in it.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I love Montana so much, because of the weather. And that's why my first non-negotiable was place. And that's another rule that you may recall about Haven. We don't talk about, politics or religion, dogma, because you might have one person in that room or in that circle who vehemently believes one way about something, and another person who vehemently believes the opposite way. And yet they're still in communion through storytelling and the belief in the importance of community. So like around here, as a writer for years, I've just been sort of sitting on the fence listening to people who are hardcore environmentalists and people who aren't, and listening to the conversations happen and trying to feel for what the connective tissue is. And it's always humanity. It's always that your life isn't that much different than my life, even though we might have very different backgrounds or come from a very different demographic or have a different amount of money in the bank. It's like the currency that I think we all really need is the currency of the human heart. And in those circles, if we use Haven as an example of other ways of getting together with people, what's in that currency? It's the human heart, it's willingness to tell a story, willingness to be vulnerable and transparent, and to let everything else go out the window. And I
honesty.
Yeah. So, and this is not, in my last Haven workshop that I just did, which the advanced program, there were people who had very opposing opinions, and we didn't talk about it, true to the protocol, but I knew. And what I saw during our meals together was a conversation about humanity, and anybody can have that conversation. And that's the conversation we need to be really having.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Oh, yes, there. We don't even want to go further than that. That's just the beautiful thing. It is about humanity right there. And now, do you want to play a little? What if we gave people a little bit of process around their writing?
Let's do it. All right.
So how this will roll is, because we're recording this, we won't do the pauses. So I know that we have some people listening, but I would say get a pen and paper right now. And because we're going to play, and they can take the notes, the writing prompts, or whatever you're going to give us. I'm so excited. And we'll just play.
All right.
Okay.
So I normally do this standing up, pacing around in a room, but I think I can do this sitting here in my dining room, sitting down. Okay. So these are things that I do with people who do my one-day workshops. I travel around the country and I do one-day workshops in Haven alums' homes so that they get the group together. It's a small group. I'd love to come up there. And then we do this it's like Haven Light, because I can't quite get the vibe going that we have on the 5-day retreat, where we really establish trust and how the group mindfully works together. And sometimes these are people who are colleagues, or their kids go to the same school, so it's just a little bit different. And the people who come on the 5-day, as you saw, really none of them know each other, so it's just immediately it's this like free zone. So these are I also do these with corporations, and both of these exercises are in my book about writing, which hopefully will come to a bookstore sooner than later near you. So I think that this is something you could do by yourself or with a colleague, or if you are a mother, this is a great thing to do as an awareness tool with your children. Okay, so the first one is about getting aware of your thought patterns. And that is what I was saying earlier. I mean, usually, like I said, we wouldn't speak to our worst enemy the way that we speak to ourselves in our minds. And that's often what gets in our way of our flow, is that inner critic. And I've had a lot of educators come to my 5-day Haven retreat, and they have said to me over and over again that the inner critic is born in about 6th grade, like 12 years of age. Unless something has happened before that age, some sort of abuse that has that inner critic locked in much earlier. But for the most part, developmentally, around 12 years of age is when the inner critic is born. And by the time she's our age, I just turned 50 last summer, she's loud and she's got a megaphone and she knows exactly what to say to really hurt you. And so this is an exercise to help us not only get aware of what goes on in our minds, but how to perhaps change our thinking in a way that will actually serve us, because often what she says doesn't serve us. And a really important tool, and I'm sure one which you teach the people you work with, is about getting in touch with what works and what doesn't. So here is the exercise. Oh, and I'll tell you one more thing. I used to think that I could shake the inner critic. And in my book that got published, I actually name her, which I think is worth doing. And I don't know where I came up with this, but I called her my evil twin sister, Sheila. I have no idea. No offense if your name's Sheila. At that time in my life, it was like, how dare you talk to me like that? Like, put up your dukes. I needed to do that for a while. Now, the thing is that unless you're highly enlightened, and I don't think I'm going to get there this time around, I don't know if I'm ever going to really shake her. So what I realized is that to be at war with her really doesn't serve me at all, because even though she may be a product of people in my life or institutions in my life, ultimately I invite her in. I give her the real estate and the really great, frette thread count in my head, better than, the sheets I sleep under. So I've decided that she's just a scared little girl with a really loud voice who knows just what to say to try to take me down. And if my kid came in the middle of the night and was freaking out because she had a nightmare, I'm not going to say, hey, beat it. I'm not going to kick her to the curb. Instead, I'm going to say, here, come to mama. I'll take care of you. And then, she quiets down. So like at Haven, she just takes a nap. That's what I tell everybody. Just pretend like your inner critic is taking a nap so that we can stretch our minds and play even in some of the darker corners that we might be exploring personally. So inner critic gets to take a nap right now. And we're going to do this exercise. I call it what I really want to say. What I really want to say. So write that at the top of your paper. What I really want to say. And then I want you to choose 3 themes, THEMES, 3 themes in your life that hold a very strong charge for you. So let's say you've just been through cancer and you've just been declared cancer-free, and you have a whole new relationship with your body and self-care that maybe you never had in your life before. So the theme would be sort of the emotional charge of it, not the actual theme like cancer, let's say. It would be maybe self-care. So it's like the emotion that comes out of that theme. Another example might be if you have children and they're both off to college or university, as you say up there, right? Don't you say university? I think you do. And they're both off to university. And so you're looking at empty nest. So maybe it's not empty nest that's the theme. It would be more like maybe it's reinvention, let's say. Or so now what? Okay, so write down 3 themes that hold a very strong charge in your life, and you know what they are. And if you're watching this, you can just pause this for a couple minutes, but don't give yourself more than just a couple minutes. It's kind of like knee jerk, like Charisse, your house is burning down and I'm the firefighter. I'm going to save your life if you tell me the top 3 most charged themes in your life. It's those. Okay, and go there, right? Because you might as well. All right, so once you get those 3 themes, then I'd like you to choose the one that holds the most charge right now, not like 10 minutes ago, but right now, and start and turn your page to a nice fresh page, and don't do it on your computer, because when we're in our computers, we're in our adult accent, and it's too easy to edit with the little pinky finger. So just pen to paper, good old fashioned thought turns into form that runs through your arm and through your pen on the paper. And let your mind go. So you're going to begin with what I really want to say, and you're going to start journaling about this theme. So let's say it's empty nest. What I really want to say is that I can't believe that I don't have children up in their bedrooms, and everybody said it was going to go so fast, and I never thought it would. In fact, it felt like it was taking forever, and it stalled out my whole life, and then all of a sudden, here I am, and I don't know who I am. Let's just say you just start going. Like, this is for your eyes only, nobody else. Set a timer at the beginning. If you were doing my workshop, I would be the timekeeper, but set a timer for 3 minutes. And at the 3-minute mark, when the timer goes off, pull your pen up off the page and ask yourself, does this thought pattern around this theme serve me? Does this thought pattern serve me? So that's a good way of putting it. It's not like, is this good, or is this bad, or is this enlightened, or is this spiritual enough, or it just doesn't serve me. And if the answer is yes, then keep going in that thought pattern. So maybe you're getting closer to understanding something that's been very difficult for you, and it's bringing up great emotion, and you feel like, this is serving me because I do need to go here. Keep going. However, if the answer is no, it's not serving me, then take, with your pen up off the paper, take 3 cleansing breaths, and those are in through the nose and out through the mouth. And it really helps to me if, sometimes I'll tell myself I should take 3 cleansing breaths, but if I really do it, something actually happens. It like recalibrates. So like, Three of those, like let that exhale make a sound, right? Three cleansing breaths. And then go back in and begin with what I really want to say. And then let your mind start going again, setting that alarm. Set the alarm while your pen's off for another 3 minutes. What I want this to help you become aware of, because this is really an awareness exercise, as are all the writing prompts I do in all of my different Haven programs, is to check in with thought patterning and ask yourself, am I swirling in this vortex of woe and misery? And it's so programmed that I can't even write my way out of this. Like, there's no greater way that I can think of to help me put my finger on the pulse of what my thought patterns are and where they're really in my way. And so I want everybody to do this for like 20 minutes. So like 20 minutes broken up by 3-minute intervals. Asking yourself, coming up for air each time, is this serving me? Is this thought pattern serving me? And if it is, great, keep writing. If it isn't, then go back in, 3 cleansing breaths, set your timer for 3 minutes again. And what I really want to say is, and then you keep going. And eventually what you'll learn about yourself, because you might be somebody who's like really trying hard to be positive or to find a solution, but maybe that doesn't serve you either. Maybe you actually really need to go there and hang out there. Or, and what I love when I do this, often I'll realize this isn't even true. This is just an old thought pattern that I'm used to. And not only doesn't it serve me, it's a lie. And I've been letting it run my life. That one happens a lot to me. So this is something that's just an incredible tool that I encourage you to do. What I really want to say, and if you are having to do like a presentation for work, you can do this exercise beforehand and it will lead you to your talking points. Mm-hmm. So you can, and then if you've got a particular issue with somebody in your life and they're willing to sit down and do this, you can choose the same theme and then each of you can do this. And then at the end, you can have a conversation about what it is that you really wanted to say and where you might have been in your way. It's a great thing to do with children too, because guess what? The children, they know how to say what they really want to say. Mm-hmm. I do this sometimes with like the 6th grader, and that's the 4th graders when I volunteer at the schools, and they have no problem with saying what they want to say. You can also tweak it and you can say what I really need to say. So like if there's somebody in your life, whether they're past or they're still with us, that you need to get complete with about something, this is for your eyes only and not for them, but you can say what I really need to say. And you can do this as a letter to them and to get down to the nitty-gritty truth of what it is that you really need to say to them. You can also do what I really mean to say. If you're confused about something in your life and you feel like you're in this kind of rhetoric that's not true, you can get over to what I really mean to say and try to get your finger on the pulse of that too. So what I really want to say, what I really mean to say, or what I really need to say. But I would begin with want. So have fun. That's a lot of fun. And if you're trying to write a book, you can do this through the point of view of the characters in your book. So like all 4 of those women in this ensemble cast of the novel I'm writing, I've done this journal exercise for each of them to help me understand how to give them voice and what might be their inner conflicts, because we all have inner conflicts. And I need to be able to welcome those and dive deeply into their conflicts in order to have the natural emergence of the resolve. And that's hopefully what will happen by the end of the book. Not all tied up in a perfect bow, but I'd like to see some of these women find some resolve from these conflicts. And this is a great way to do it. So there you are.
Thank you. Okay, great exercise, ladies. I hope you all do this because I know I did these at writing retreat with you, and I loved the exercises were they were like a jumping off point for my creativity. They certainly like led me places I didn't think I'd go with my writing, and also like was able to come home and use them again.
Good.
Keep playing. Mm-hmm. And also from a point of connection, I know when I do run my retreats, one of the questions that I have people ask is, what I need you all to know is.
Oh, good.
It's such a powerful question when we open circle for people to just get super honest, like around, just because there's probably some theme that I need you to understand this if we're going to be in circle and in commune together.
Yeah, good one. Say it again. I want to write it down.
What I need you all to know is.
What I need you all to know. That's
great way to create in circle. I have them answer some other ones first, and that's the last one that they answer, because if you can't start with it because it's too intense usually. And some people, like, I need you all to know that I'm happy. Like, some people will be but I find rare everybody's willing to, like, that's the question where the veil lifts and the truth comes.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
You're doing such good work, Cherise.
Thank you. I think it would be like when I think about your characters, even, I'm like, I want to know what they need us to know. When I think about those 4 characters, what do they want us to know about themselves?
I'm totally going to use that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love it.
You should lead a writing retreat.
I'll leave that to you, but I'll come along.
Okay, good. It's a deal.
Thank you so much, Laura, for all of this. Are there any parting words you want to leave us with?
Parting words. Well, of course, I would love to have anybody out there that works with you work with me at Haven. I think that it would be a very natural fit. And I also want you to understand that you, more than anybody on this planet, knows this to be true, and that is that you do have a voice. You are creative. Nobody can speak or express themselves in the way that you can, that is uniquely your way to not only show up on this planet, but to communicate who you are. And writing is a terrific tool to help you build those bridges. So I hope that you consider it. And if you are interested in coming to Haven, drop me a note on the lauramunson.com website in the Contact Us section. I get all those along with my Haven team, but I get them all too. And we can set up a time to talk on the phone. You do not need to be a writer to come, simply a seeker. And I know that anybody who is in this group is absolutely a seeker. So I would welcome a conversation with any of you. And you can also do all that internet stuff, like follow me on Twitter. LA Munson is my handle, I believe. And also Facebook, Laura Munson author page. And I do have a blog right now. We're running a winter blog series called Finding Your Voice, and it's essays by Haven Writing Retreat alums, so you can check that out too. Most of all, just remember, you have a voice, and nobody can take it away.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your time. I'm just going to click off the record.
Okay. Great.
Thank you so much, ladies, and thank you for those who are listening online, or those of you that do dive in and watch this video and get the gold that's in here for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Cherise.
Thank you.